So welcome to the Node.js Community N-API Team meeting for October 18th, 2018. We're going to follow our standard approach of going through our current milestone. And then we also have Gary from Microsoft who's going to talk a little bit about one of his use cases where Hitesh mentioned that N-API might be a good fit, and hopefully we'll go through that and sort of see the I guess the mismatch and get a better understanding of how it would apply in that case. So let me first pull up the milestone plan. And I'll share that once I have it up. Okay. Share. There we go. So we're working on milestone 11. So investigate N-API to help avoid future breakage like in the 22754. I know, Hitesh, you pasted in a link that showed a number of the modules. Oops, I shouldn't have moved that out. Let me bring that back in. Okay. Just looking in terms of our next steps that we should be thinking on those. Actually, I guess it was Jao who pasted in the list. But I guess what we need to figure out is there something specific we want to do on to push on that list? All right. So Hitesh, you had commented. So did you have any thoughts on that front? Like, is there?
There's tension here. I think some of these modules were on the list we had for a workshop. So right. I think, pretty much all except like one of these modules is a good candidate for an API. And in many cases, they're already in progress. The ports to an API are already in progress. So I don't know if we should treat this any different than our general evangelism strategy for an API, which is we reach out to module authors when we can, and offer ports as part of workshops, and otherwise just be available for people who need help with porting the modules.
Right. So I think the icon is one that maybe stands out, that maybe at the workshop, we should really look for somebody who would do that, like take ownership and do that one.
Yeah, icon one time are like super easy. So if there are people who are like, I want to get into an API, like those are like trivial modules to get ported.
So I think those are two we should call out. Like maybe Jim, you were looking at the deck. Maybe we should like even call them out in advance and say, in particular, we have two which we know are relatively straightforward.
So, sorry to cut in, Michael, but yep. I think Nico's trying to get in.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I gotta see. Okay. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing because it's gonna immediately pop up the menu I need. Okay. No. Right, and Shelly's here too, so that's good.
Hi, guys. Sorry for the late.
Yeah, no problem, and sorry for not seeing you right away. Hitesh just pointed it out. And also welcome to Shelly. I don't know if everybody, well, probably not everybody, but a number of people may have met Shelly at the Collaborator Summit, but she's on the Electron team and is sort of joining us to help in terms of helping us work on the N-API story in an Electron context. So for your benefit, Shelly, what we usually do is we go through our milestone overview for the milestone of things we're working on. And so I'm thinking we'll go through that, and then at the end we can then talk a little bit about Electron issues and potential collaboration going forward. And similarly, we also have somebody from Microsoft that's going to talk a little bit about one of the use cases that they're looking at. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Shelly, does that sound good to you too?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, sounds good. So we were We were just looking at this issue 22754, where last attempt to update V8 broke a number of modules in our repo, and I guess Hitesh, I was just suggesting, or Jim, I was suggesting maybe we even update the deck we use for the workshop at NodeConf.eu to highlight those two as two sort of straightforward ones that we really could use somebody to kind of lead a port on with this as a motivation for that.
Okay, Mike, I'll create a new slide for those two.
Okay, sounds good. And then the others, I mean, there's a few I think, Hitesh, you say we kind of have covered, but serial port is kind of, I started something way back when and never really made any progress. So I'm not quite sure it's covered, but.
What's the story with the level down?
Yeah, that's again, so we did a port, but I don't think we ever really got it back into the main repo.
Okay, where would that work? Where would I'd like to take a look at that. Where would that work exist?
Right. Hitesh, do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it would be, let me paste a link. I'm pretty sure it's on like Taylor's fork of Level Down.
Yeah. Because we use that in the basically the regression testing that we have.
That's right.
But it is still, I did notice it's still a fork. So yeah, so actually, like you did, Jim, with the other projects, actually working with the maintainers to get landed would make a lot of sense.
Michael, on Abbystable node, on the README, there is the reference to level down, and it's a fork from Samsung.
Right.
So I think that we need to start from here.
Yeah, and I think for some reason,
right.
I think I can't remember if Samsung did that fork or had to fork it to do something else, but
let me talk to Taylor. He's off today, but he'll be back tomorrow. And I can check what version. So we are running those tests internally too. And I can check which version of Level Down we're running for N-API testing.
Sounds
good. I can get back to, I'll push back onto the same issue.
Okay. Great. So we'll leave that issue open because yeah, I think there are things we can be doing to try and push on at least these ones.
Okay.
With our goal probably being that, you know, the versions that end up in the SIGIM runs being the N-API versions, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the longer term goal. So
yeah.
Okay, I think for today though we should probably move on. So SQL 8 N-API port, again, sorry, but Anita still pulled heavily from school. I think she had 3 midterms last week, so not making any progress on that. Last update was just we have to sort of loop back because there was some direct usage of UV we need to take out. So she said she'd hopefully get to that by early next week, and then I'll meet with her on that again. Burning down the list of issues raised by module owners and the list of issues in the Node repo. I don't know if there's any specific ones people want to call out on that front. If nobody else has any, I don't have any other than saying there's been a few which are good to see. I'll probably go and try and land a few of the ones in Node add-on API. For example, things like adding the callback scope and so forth. So it's good to see that, and some other additional testing, which is good. Topics for N-API Collaborator Summit. This I think we can just close since we've had the Collaborator Summit, except that I know, Jim, we want to try and do a session where we covered some of the like a code walkthrough.
Right, and I'll work with Gabriel directly on that, Michael.
Perfect.
Yeah.
If you want me to get involved in it at all, let me know. But Gabriel can easily handle that. So
okay.
That's close.
Michael,
yep.
Can you promote the Runesh?
Yep. Let me go back. There we go. Okay, so Create metrics of tested methods. I don't think we have anything on that other than we probably have a few updates in terms of people have contributed some additional testing. So we probably need to take another look at what's missing. Unless anybody else has something to add on that, I'd say, we just need to continue the push on looking at adding that tests. But otherwise, let's push it back and just leave it on the agenda. Next one is around badges. Gabriel, do you want to give us an update on that one?
Status quo there, unfortunately. I'm not exactly sure how to proceed with that PR because it's just sitting there and the author hasn't answered. So I don't want to like copy their blurb and just add it to our README and then mark myself as author, because I mean I could refer back to the original PR if nothing happens, but I'm not 100% sure how to handle that.
How long have you been waiting?
I think it's been weeks now. So the author just kind of disappeared.
Right. I think I'd be tempted to do something like, post something else saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do unless I hear back from you in the next week. And then maybe next week do the same thing. And after 2 more weeks, if it's been a month and we've heard absolutely nothing, go ahead and do it. And like you said, give credit in terms of the referral link. And I don't think we can, that seems, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems like a reasonable approach to me.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's.
I agree.
Okay. Document limitations of ABS stability offered by the N-API. So I know, Gabriel, you've done some work on that as well. Is there anything?
Oh yeah. This issue I think can be closed because we've landed everything we were going to land.
Excellent. Okay.
So that sort of detailed explanation has now landed. I guess maybe we need to make one more link to that from Node.js API, I think. Nicola, do you remember where we were going to link from?
Are we on the README?
Okay. Which README?
One moment. Okay, yes, we have the link at ABI stability with. So
yeah, that's right. I think we already have that. Okay, so I guess
we have.
Okay, so it's closed. Excellent. This one we've basically held the session, so I think we can close that as well. Unless I don't know if anybody wants to talk about how that went, do a postmortem, have any comments? What would we do differently or do the same next time?
You mean a collaborator summit session?
This was the community corner session.
Oh, the community corner.
That was really ad hoc. I think that was a one-off.
I think it was a good opportunity. I somehow felt that, the audience were not sure what the expectation was. But I think, I'm not sure, like going forward, if there is an opportunity like this.
I think quite likely we'll have a community corner at future.
Right. I think we should have surveyed the audience in terms of their they're interested in an API and what they're, are they module maintainers or not.
I think we did ask that at the beginning. I think there was only like a couple of maintainers, right?
Yeah, I think there were only 2.
Yeah.
Or maybe, the promoting the community corner events would be that, hey, if you have specific questions. I thought there were only a couple of people who were really interested in getting
well, there was only a few people, so I think it was an opportunity to broaden the number of people who were aware of what it was, because when we asked how many people knew what it was already, there wasn't a huge number.
Right.
So I think, but my perspective is we might have been better off with like a shorter, tighter intro.
Yeah.
Had a bit more time for discussion and like tried to use that as an interactive session.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't plan for that, so we just used what we had. But
Right.
if I was to do it again, it might be like, a 2 or 3 slide intro, and then specific topics.
Actually, come to think of it, I actually got some good use out of this session because I was able to help Jim's colleague get started. So it was like a very, very specific thing. I know it doesn't scale very well, especially not with a short session, but it was kind of like a mini code and learn as far as I was concerned.
Right.
And I think I got him off to a pretty good start. I mean, I don't know, Jim, maybe you can catch up and see if
No, in the intro part, when I asked them like how many people have any questions about this and all that, and nobody really answered. So I was kind of left at whether I continue to keep asking questions or just go through my prepared slides and maybe, have some conversations later.
Yeah, well, that's why I was thinking like we need to be prepared to give an intro, but maybe just enough so that we can then start to say, okay, even if you haven't known about this, have you experienced these kinds of problems, or
And would it be interesting for you to think about this going forward?
Yeah.
And at Code and Learn, 2 people asked me about an API and another API, and in the specific how to create an asynchronous function. So I spent all the time explain these to these 2 developers, and they were enthusiastic and want port some of their native add-on, and I invited them to ping us when they end the work, just to promote that another native add-on has been ported to an API.
Okay, that's good.
Did we did promote the collaborator summit session, right? Because that's another thing that we can do. Or sorry, yeah, even the code and learn maybe, although that's more about the core repo. So I'm not 100% sure, but basically we should, because I think the community corner session, if we want to make it interactive, then there's not much opportunity to actually dive into it because it's only half an hour, right? So it's kind of too short. It's kind of too short for a code and learn, but it's too long for a presentation, given that we want to make it interactive, right? So I'm not sure how quickly we can dive, how deeply before we need more time. So at the very least, we can use it sort of like a springboard to direct people to the rest of our sessions. But that, of course, assumes that it comes early in the program.
True.
So Hitesh actually pointed this out. There's a guy talking about N-API at Cascadia.js next month in Seattle. So
Good.
Well, that's good.
I don't know who is he, but seems like
The more strangers, the better.
Yeah, I mean, there's also one at it's one of the ones in Argentina or something. It's one of the ones in South America that, remember, we reviewed the deck for one of the presenters.
Oh yeah.
I remember. Yeah. I think that he is a student, and his talk has been chosen for not the Conf Argentina. Good.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to think about an evangelist program or something, like, if you want to talk about an API, we'll help you review your deck, help you with, questions and stuff like that. Basically ask for, because we can't go everywhere, but if there's people who are local and who are more likely to be able to do that, that might be something worth thinking about.
So how did the Collab Summit turn out? Sorry, I had to bail out early. Was there something interesting?
We didn't talk too much about the core stuff. One thing we did talk about was embedding, which Shelley's interested in. Also in just, there was one of the people pointed out that they've had some challenges using N-API modules with Electron. So I think on the embedding front, though, the conclusion that we kind of came to, I think, maybe I'm not sure, 100% agreement, was that instead of going directly to N-API APIs, we should iterate a bit more on what we have in core, the C++ ones, get them to a state where they're closer to what you would want, and then look at wrapping those in a formal N-API. So in terms of the embedding story, the vision I have is there'll be a separate team that sort of ramps up and focuses on the use cases for that. Once that gets far enough along, then we'll look back at looking at whether there should be an API under an API that exposes some of that.
Okay.
So there's a good discussion on that front. There was a discussion a bit about the documentation. So Nicola talked to us about some proposals on documentation. There was some suggestion that maybe we should be trying to move some of the doc back into the header files and then extracting that for our external doc. So that's something we should think about. Remind me, everybody else, if there's something else I'm forgetting. I have a feeling there is.
There are minutes on as a PR against this repo.
Right.
Oh, okay.
There was a brief discussion about the relationship between WASM and N-API.
Right. Ali wants to sort of get some people looking at WASM add-ons. And his question is, I think his kind of question is like, is this group interested? And I think enough people were that we said, sure, come and let's talk about that as a group here that's interested in add-ons. And if it grows to something that's big enough or different enough that it should have its own team, then sure. But for now, maybe it's good to start including those discussions here.
Yeah, WASM, it could be a good place as well.
Go ahead. Yeah.
One of the things in my conversation came up was that the NAN repo, should we kind of reach out to them and actively try to promote N-API instead of NAN going forward?
That is a good point. Sort of at least have links there saying, hey, if you're starting something new,
right,
start over. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Should I open an issue right now so we don't forget that?
And NPM help with discovery, it was another topic. I talked to several people, but NPM is not willing to help out, at least until it becomes a big deal.
Okay. Okay, so I guess anything else on that front before we move on to the next issue? No, okay, so the last one is NodeConf EU 2018, so the N-API workshop. So I know, Jim, you were working on some things for that.
Yeah, so I updated the collaborator slide to add all missing current collaborators. So that we could take a look at that slide if you'd like.
Sure. That's this one.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So that should have everybody.
Good.
Go ahead, Michael.
I just said good.
Oh, okay. And then we 2 weeks ago, we also discussed a membership review, and I have a couple issues ready to post, but I didn't know if you wanted to look at those first, Michael.
You can post them. If you want me to look at them, I will. Otherwise, just go ahead and post them, and we can always tweak them once they're there. But
Okay, I'll post them right at the conclusion of this meeting.
sounds
Well, I
good.
could do them now too, I guess, if we wanted to take the time here. But I know we have other topics we need to discuss.
Yeah, maybe we'll loop back to that at the end if we still have time.
All right, that's good. And then I need to work on a tutorial for pre-build, but I'll have that ready in time for the conference.
Okay.
And other than that, I think we're in good shape.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think we have it's 2 weeks at the end of this week before we head out there. So
right.
Yeah.
I think though a workshop is good, like in terms of, actually getting people hands-on. In terms of the list of modules, who's bringing that this time?
The list of modules?
Right, like at the end, we have some workshops people can work through, and after they're complete with that, it's kind of like, okay, well now, why don't you try actually helping to port a module? I think last time Hitesh brought a bunch of, pieces of paper with modules.
So we were going to promote the iConf and Time projects, and then we're also going to take a look at Level Down to see where we're at with that.
I think Level Down will probably be too hard to do a port for a beginner.
All right.
But I'm happy to share. Jim, I can send you if you will take the list there, I can send the list of modules that I had the last time, because I don't remember seeing any ports from coming out of that anyway.
Okay,
so
excellent.
Probably just use that same list.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, because we probably need like 20, 30, just,
okay.
People are keen, and that's a good next step.
Okay.
To have something we can hand out, so.
All right.
Okay, it sounds like Hitesh will coordinate with Jim to pass on the list, and then Jim, you can bring that.
All right.
Okay, sounds great. Now I'm just going to look at the milestone overview because I wasn't sure we had everything. I think we do. So we still need to get back on some focus on async worker. So we'll have to open an issue for that. This, I think we've covered everything. The ABI stable node on add-on examples. Is there anything more you think we need to do on that, Gabriel? I know you've merged it. I guess there were some issues we need to clean out there, right?
Yeah, there aren't too many left. It's pretty stable now, I think. I don't know that I fixed that crash a while back, so that landed. Yeah, it's basically just status quo right now.
Right. I think so. The issues I was talking about were the ones like Nicola had pointed out that we'd had a lot of old ones. So we've managed to close those out.
Yeah, I kind of went through them, and some of them, I don't know. There's just nothing really much we can do. They're like open issue that just kind of died out. I closed a bunch of them as, if you still see this problem, then please reopen kind of thing.
Okay.
But there might be a few left.
There's still a few that are applicable. Okay, but it sounds like, okay, so on that front, you'd say we're basically done rationalizing those two.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, so really the only thing, I'm going to do that right now, is open a new issue here and label that for milestone 11, because I think we have everything else covered in our list.
One quick thing I just realized about the NodeConf EU. Matteo has a native module that he has been trying to get on N-API. Do we know the status of what the progress is? Yeah.
I was just asking even which one it was.
I can't seem to remember. It was something to do with the Pinot logger, I believe. The point I was trying to make was that the workshop that we're going to do, is it possible to get Matteo to participate in that workshop and get that thing going, because he had struggled with it.
We can ask him. He's probably going to be pretty busy as one of the organizers, but
yeah.
I mean, I'd almost think if we want to put that on our list, we should open an issue and try and have somebody reach out to him.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to be there himself. Like if he can find somebody else from his team to see if it can be. I'll talk to Mateo and see if
Okay,
that can be arranged.
sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so I'm gonna then close this milestone overview because I think we'll now have it covered in our other issues. Go ahead.
You hit comment, not close. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we're through our regular agenda. I thought maybe next we could sort of talk a little bit with Shelley about Electron and N-API integration, because I suspect that won't take too long, and then we can move on to to Gary's use case. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there aren't like too many things. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, no, go.
There aren't too many things that are broken right now in N-API with Electron specifically. There's like only one issue that's really open for us right now, which is like there's apparently some weird issues with call thread safe function. I don't really know what's going on with that. I was planning to dig into that soon, but really how we'd like to sort of help and contribute upstream is we'd just like to help by just working on a just basically like a set of embedder APIs for an API that embedders could use to sort of improve the experience and make it a little more first class than it is right now in terms of having to do a whole bunch of gross-ish things with create environment, load environment, et cetera, et cetera.
The one thing, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you have a specific minimal test case for this N-API call thread safe function? Because I wrote that API and I'd be really interested in a case where it doesn't work.
Yes, I have the issue with the repro inside. Should I just sort of dump that in chat? What's the best thing for me to do there?
Yeah.
The other thing I thought we might chat about is it's good to get you connected in. So if we have people reporting issues with Electron, we can make sure we loop you in to help get them resolved. The other thing I was wondering is, like, is there anything we can do on the testing front? Either by having testing like in your environment that then reports issues with latest versions of Node, N-API and Node.js N-API. So for example, today, before we do a new release, we have a set of runs we run to check against the different versions with Node. I wonder if either we could add Electron to that, or we could, in your environment, have a job that we could kick off, and just to get a little more visibility into, as things move forward, is the next version of the module going to work with Electron or not, and that kind of stuff.
That's a good question. I can look into that. What the most efficient way to do that, I think, would be. I would probably lean towards just like something that like you'd build, like you just build like some version of Electron rather than kick off a job, just because we don't really have like manual CI, which is sort of a downer. But yeah, I can probably think about that a little more and then get back to you then. Also, Gabriel, I dumped the issue into chat. There's a repro in there, which should make it pretty easy to reproduce the issue. It's basically like some weird, like non-determinism around call thread safe function and like the UVQ being free.
Okay, yeah, I'll have a look. I mean, if it's reproducible often enough, then it should be good, since it is non-determined.
Yeah, and I'm happy to. I mean, I was gonna dig into that today, so I can get some more context on it and then send to you if you'd prefer to. But
well, no, by all means, please dig into it, because I may not have time. I'm just writing it down because I wrote that, and so it's kind of close to my heart. But I may not have the cycles for it. Okay. So don't change your plans on my.
That's right. But if you need help, Gabriel's the one to ask for help.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And then as like an embedder API goes, or like anything of that nature, I don't think any of us have particularly strong opinions about what it looks like, in the sense that, sort of similar to what I said in the breakout we had at the Collaborator Summit, it's just anything that's better.
Right.
So just anything that we can use to sort of like formalize and streamline the process for embedders would be great. So
I think what would be
I'm
really
happy
good
to sort of do.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh no, I was tailing off. I was
Okay.
saying I'm happy to sort of do whatever to help make that happen.
Like in my mind, I think actually coming up with the I'm sort of the same with you. I don't have any specific views on what it should look like, but if we could help build the use cases that we can test it against, that would be useful. So, people propose, here's the APIs. It's like, can I easily use that in this particular use case? That's the kind of thing where like your experience in the Electron view would definitely would be good to help inform that.
Okay.
I just shared so just to give you a little bit of an insight, what we already have in terms of testing. So when you're thinking about it, we have some tests which don't work so consistently, but we try and run some modules. The base one that does run every night across versions is we take Node add-on API and we build it and run its test suite across the different versions of nodes like 6.10, 6.8.10 and master. So getting something like that where, if there was a simple set of steps where we would like build Electron and then build Node add-on API, which builds modules and then uses Electron to run the tests versus using Node, if that's possible, I don't know. But if something like that was possible, it would be nice to have that in here too. Because it would
at the very least, I can explore it.
Okay. So so let us know what you think on that front once you've had time to think about it. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, not particularly.
No.
I mean, basically, I would like to do work on this and then also help out generally with N-API things. So anything I can help with.
Like today, the main, there's a couple things, like if you wanted to actually jump in and do specific things, we're focused, as we mentioned, on building out test coverage for Node add-on API. So that's an area where, we, and probably not a bad way to, you have to build it, to write the test and all that kind of stuff. So that there's also some pieces that are in the Node core in terms of we have the core C N-APIs, but we don't have the C++ wrapper APIs. So that's another area. And then otherwise it's just the general, like people have reported issues in the repo. So looking at understanding those. And then the other things, like as you saw, we get together and sort of talk through the main things we're trying to push on the sort of meta scale. So any of those that sound interesting that you want to get involved in, just put up your hand. And so for example, if you saw one of those modules and said, hey, I would be interested in porting it, that would be something that, would easily be doable. Make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Cool. Well, welcome to the team.
Okay, so the next thing we had was Gary's here, and I think I'll let you frame it a little bit more, but my understanding is, you have a use case where N-API might be the right thing to use. Hitesh mentioned it to you, so you're going to give us a little bit of a context on what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. So a little bit about myself real quick. I work mostly on Babylon.js and GLTF. I'm actually part of the GLTF working group as well. So we've recently been sort of prototyping and trying to figure out how to use Babylon.js in a more native environment. So similar to how you think of React.js and React Native, it's similar to that kind of mechanism. And we've been trying to host Babylon.js in a native environment, similar to how Node hosts JavaScript stuff in Node. And I've been looking at how people are doing cross-platform, cross different JavaScript engines, how to sort of unify that. And I found a Chakra, the Chakra shim. And I was like, hey, this looks good. Maybe I can use a V8's API and then talk to either Chakra or V8. And then I found the names of the guys that are working on it, and I pinged them because they were all a couple of Microsoft guys. And so I pinged them, and Hitesh here said, hey, maybe you should use N-API. And I'm like, I never heard of that, so let me look at that. And effectively, I looked at it. The only thing that's sort of a problem for me is I just need the ES part of the Node API. I don't want the Node part of the Node API, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I tried prototyping a bunch of these things. So I have V8 working in my prototype. I have almost Chakra working in my prototype. But yeah, basically, I want to know if there's a path forward to sort of factor out just the ES part of it into its own thing so that I can use that by itself without the Node part of it. And then Node can maybe use that core part of it as sort of the base.
Right.
Yeah,
And when you say factor out, what would that entail? Like is it that how does, like, as I think I understand, you just said you re-implemented NAPI, did you? Or
oh no, I did not. So
okay.
I commented out for the most part the parts that are Node specific.
Okay.
And then I reused the same the C++ layer and the native sort of the C layer. And I basically just commented out the parts that are Node specific, and I used only the ES part of it.
Right. Okay. So you took like NAPI, Node underscore API and Node underscore like .cc and .h, commented a bunch of stuff out, and then that's what you built into your project.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting. So what you'd really like is you'd like two files, one which would be like Node API. I don't know, I'm making up a bad name, but like Node API underscore ES6 and then Node underscore API Node.
Right, exactly.
And if those were two separate files, you'd be happy, right?
That's correct.
I like the reuse. I mean, I like the reuse of NAPI for sure, and then even being able to reuse the same code sounds like a good thing too.
Yeah, because it kind of makes code reuse really good, because I can use the same code that's written for Node, for example, or an add-on for
Right.
Node, and I can reuse it in this app as well, and they're compatible.
Right.
So I think it's a good thing if we get it to work. But
would defines be enough for you? Like if basically we had a define in those two files that stripped out everything that wasn't ES6?
that would work if it compiles like that. Yeah, definitely.
Because I'm just thinking we would have difficulty today changing the .h file, because that's part of what people compile against, right? The CC file we might be able to split into two things.
Why would the .h file also have problems? Couldn't you just create two new .h files and change the existing one to just include those two?
That would be fine. Yeah, we can't change the external view of those files.
That's right.
But yeah, I think the includes would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, either way, to me, that's just the way you implement it. The question for me is this idea okay? Is this something you guys would entertain?
I'm certainly open. What about Gabriel? Do you have any concerns?
No, in fact, I'm really happy about this, because I've been sort of advocating having a C API for the engine and only the engine for a long time, because it completely makes sense to have that, because JavaScript has one spec and all the engines implement it and they all expose it differently, but the spec is the same in all cases. And we've sort of come up with an API that everybody seems to like, which covers the spec, not so much the implementation. And so to have this API easily accessible and sort of detachable is I think a very good idea. I mean, we've called it N-API because it started its life in Node, right? But a lot of it is not Node specific at all, right? No. I mean, only buffer and async and async work and the thread safe function, those are Node specific, right? But everything else is pretty much ECMA script straight up.
So we could come up with, like, just thinking out loud, it would be like JS underscore API.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know if there's like a JS node extensions, but yeah, I think something that says, here are the pieces which are just JavaScript. And I can see, like, I don't know, for JerryScript or whatever, that might even have made your life a little bit easier if it was like, here's the things you would implement for JavaScript, but aren't node specific, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I mean, anything covered by the spec ought to have its own header file, is what it looks like.
Yeah, and I think that what I'm hoping that means is then, you know, the work that Gary's doing, Gary and team is doing, might lead to additional things being implemented that, because it's in a simple file, you can easily contribute those back as well.
Yep.
And so we get extended ES coverage, you know.
For sure.
Yeah, that would be ideal if we can get that to happen.
So yeah, it sounds, you know, as long as we don't change the shape, so that, you know, we can't make a breaking change.
Right.
But otherwise, I think some restructuring, and to me, it makes total sense to have some, like, have a structure which is like, here are the things that are pure JavaScript and here are the things that are Node. And I guess those would include like our extensions, like the async support and stuff like that. But
yeah, I had to comment all that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be the things that would be in the ES stuff would be stuff which is, you know, it supports the spec and nothing else.
Well, there's ES, but there's also some things that all engines have in common, things like persistent references and stuff. I mean, that's not part of ES, but it is an indispensable part of the native interface. That's not Node specific. Like, every engine has to have references, otherwise you can't really use it, because you have to store everything in JavaScript.
Yeah, and
and things like external isn't part of the spec, but it's pretty much part of the spec for the native side. Like, again, indispensable.
Right.
You know, and wrap is also something that is not necessarily specific, because, you know, attaching attaching a native pointer to a JavaScript object and having their lifetimes coincide, that is also, you know, it goes beyond a single engine. So to be honest, Hitesh and I at the conference, we were talking about maybe even coming up with like a body, that, like a standards body that maintains an API like that, because it seems to be sort of heading into that direction. I mean, we're not there yet. I mean, this is way ahead. But basically have a standard way of exposing a JavaScript engine to native code makes a lot of sense, because we're just converging on that de facto.
Right. And that should be N-API related or look similar, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So the shape of an API seems to be well liked, and so you know, it just makes sense. And then this is something, and, you know, if we do get buy-in from VM maintainers for this, then we get the additional benefit that we do not have to pay as much of a performance penalty either, because if the VM implements this API, then you know, they can hook directly into their internals, you know. So but of course it's a huge uphill battle, but giving them something easy to implement would make sense, and separating out the Node.js parts, which VMs are almost never going to implement unless we go through TC39, you know, would probably make their lives easier.
Yeah, it seems quite compatible with that too.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know. I guess I can try to take a look at this, because it seems more like a build time thing than anything else. So
yeah, it should be just a little bit of refactoring in terms of move stuff to a different file and do some includes, and hopefully everything still works.
if we wanted to split the CC file, that might be a little trickier, because we have this like a V8 impl namespace, and you know, which parts of the implementation should go into which file and how they interact. That might be a little it might involve some disentangling, but I can look at that anyway. The header should be like almost trivial to split.
Yeah, although I think what Gary needs is the C side too, right?
Yeah. So we'll go from there.
Gary,
I don't know,
only the C side, because the header file, I can just choose not to use the things that are not split.
Yeah, true. So I was going to ask, Gary, do you have any public repo where those chunks that are commented out are present?
It's not currently public, but I can make it public.
Okay, yeah, that would be good.
And I think if we can get Gary to help with any of this work, that would be good too.
Yeah, I can certainly help with this. Yeah.
The other thing that I'm thinking of is, testing. So like, you know, sorry, I didn't quite catch which projects you wanted to use this in. It was for
Babylon.js.
Right. Okay. I mean, again, just, you know, like the similar question that I had for Shelley is, it would be good to have some sort of integrated testing. So as we land changes into N-API and Node add-on API, we know whether we're breaking anything in these, you know, external users of N-API. And we can at very least, pull you in to say, hey, by the way, this is happening sooner than later. So.
Yeah, sure. We can definitely talk about testing. We have our own tests as well. So however we want to integrate that, we can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should figure that out. Obviously, splitting it up is the first step, though.
So the N-API test suite that is currently a part of Node, I think is also naturally split up that way because we tend to have one subdirectory of add-ons N-API, or yep. I forget what we called it, but anyway, we tend to have one subdirectory test one thing.
Yep.
And so the node specific things are tested in node specific subdirectories. So I think we have a natural split there.
Yeah, we already have another request to try and externalize that test suite as well. So
yeah.
So I think as part of that work, we want to figure out, like, it may be as simple as a way to say just run a subset, you know, the ES subset, or as opposed to everything, right? Because right now it's hard coded to say here's all the things you run. So maybe some defines even would be simple on that front to say, and when you run this test suite, these are the only things you should try and run.
Yep.
Okay, but that's another good reason for externalizing the test suite.
Yeah. I think the Shadow Node guys, they already have some sort of mechanism for providing a mask as to which tests to run, which ones not to run.
Okay, so maybe we can reuse that.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Okay, but this is just another motivation because it's, you know, if we break it out, that's great, but then it's probably that as part of the Babylon side, if they could actually reuse the N-API tests, that would be useful too, if they make sense. So
yeah.
Okay. I have to look at it, but it sounds like it makes sense.
Okay, so I mean, I think it sounds like a good idea, and again, you know, the more shared common use of N-API, the better. So if you can help to look at, you know, what the refactoring would need to look like, if you could you know, even if you had time to put together the PR, then we could easily help review that. And
okay, yeah.
I'm even hoping, like, I don't know if you have time, but if you can kind of come to this meeting on a regular basis, so we can kind of add into our regular sync on how are we making progress on this front, I think that'd be good.
Okay, well, I'll talk to the team about that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Okay, I think we're at the end of our time. Is there anything else people want to talk about this week? Okay, if not, well, thanks for everybody for participating, and we'll talk next time.
All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.